Yeah, so I think it makes sense for us to start having these pledge calls every week instead of every other week. And those who can't attend every week, just don't worry about it. It's an opportunity to come and connect with people around the particular position that the pledge community sits in the larger ecosystem of activities. And I sense that with what is happening right now, there's sort of an acceleration going on. We can probably all feel it. That if you just looked at Earth regenerators, let alone everything else, if you just looked at Earth regenerators, you would see that several things that have been slowly getting ready to happen are all sort of happening at once. And things we talked about doing 7, 8 months ago are happening now, overlapping with other things that we talked about 4 months ago, or things we talked about a year and a half ago. And so, oh, hey, Tyler, welcome, pull up a chair. And so what I want to maybe invite as a beginning of the clarification of the pledge community within those changes is I feel like we're still figuring out what the pledge community is and who we are as part of it. And I think we'll stay in that slightly confused place for a little while longer, just because there's so much change happening. I think if we were not in a context of change, in like 2 meetings, we'd be like, we know what we are, let's move. But there's so much change happening that I think if we got to clarity too soon, we would probably get to a false clarity, is what I sense. But what I wanted to name and then have us start to talk about together is what I see the pledge community as from my point of view, from the place where I sit. And then have us talk to each other about what we see the pledge community being. Because I feel like it is a particular bridge between particular things in a particular moment, where if we understand what's happening in this moment, we understand which realms of activity have bridges growing between them, and what the pledge community is doing within that unclear web of relationships where everything is changing, then I think we'll better see how to navigate what's happening. And so what I'd like to do is just start by naming that context, which I'll do briefly, and then for us to start having a conversation about like collective sense making. Like, is what I'm saying correct? How would you modify it? What do you see from where you sit? And we just spend this hour doing some of that sense making together. And so one piece of this that I see is that there is a really, how would I say, there's a very important, I want to use a positive framing. There's a very important position that is a functional relational space between what's happening in Barichara and what's happening in the rest of the world. And there's a functional relational space that is holding something between Barichara and the rest of the world. It's actually holding multiple somethings, and it's not clear what they all are. And so the pledge community is a specific part of that relational field. And so, for example, Antonio and I are the 2 instigators of Refi Barichara, but we've pulled a lot of other people into Refi Barichara, a lot of local people, a lot of people from the outside, a lot of new people. So it's a really complex and ever-changing relational space. But Antonio is part of the pledge community, as well as his other roles. And so there's something about the pledge community that even sits in the instigation, the emergence of Refi Barichara. There's something about the way that Earth Regenerators is coming to its own decentralized sovereign leadership without me participating, as I've stepped away enough for the clarity to continue emerging, like the Vivero meeting that happened last night, like other things that are happening in Earth Regenerators that I played a role in catalyzing. I had a part in each of those things in one moment in history, but they've really completely become their own things. And whatever roles I played, I was like a catalyst or a supporter or something, but they were actually led by other people. But there is a way in which Earth Regenerators is becoming sovereign in a new way, And the pledge community sits in some relationship between Barichara and all of that. There's something about how we're prototyping governance and funding with the Gitcoin funding round, with the way that Paula entered into the pledge community while taking a case study to R3.0. And now Paula's coming back to Refi Barichara, is going to be doing journaling of daily reporting of what's happening here. And so there's something about being in the pledge community that is related to that But you see how these relational webs are so complex and multifaceted. Paula, you wouldn't say you're doing it because you're in the pledge community, but you're being in the pledge community is part of it. And so there's some way in which the pledge community is doing something really important. Tyler is here. There's Tyler. Tyler wrote the grant proposal for us to enter the Gitcoin grant. And then he brought his pledge and his two brothers' pledge, because the three of them shared a $1,000 pledge, and they put it into Gitcoin to get us matching returns. So the activation of a group pledge occurred within Gitcoin, instigated by Tyler being in the pledge community and being here in Barichara and being an Earth Regenerator. So again, there's something about this. And so what I sense is that the pledge community is going to be a place that holds a particular kind of coherence that otherwise wouldn't exist, and that we have not been able to name what it is yet. I sense that there's something about having already raised money with the pledge community. There's something about some members of the pledge community putting money into other projects. There's something about members of the pledge community making the loan to carry Las Albercas forward. There's something about this group of us that is holding something very important. And I think we can sense it, but we can't name it. And so what I want to do is spend this hour trying to name it. We don't have to succeed, but just trying to name it, doing sense making. Because when Refi Barichara happens in 2 weeks, and a bunch of stuff is going to change in a very short amount of time. I don't even want to, in the Barichara updates call tomorrow, I'll share more of how transformational Refi Barichara is and what's happening with it. I'm not going to spend that time today because there's a whole story to tell by itself. But we're entering into an absolutely transformational moment. And so the pledge community can hold a particular kind of coherence through it if we know what it is. And so part of this is about creating the capacity to birth a planetary network of bioregional learning centers, a planetary network of landscape investment models in the way that Common Land has them. Something like this that is coming into being, of decentralized governance and funding. Really powerful things are happening, and this pledge community is holding something. So that's my provocation for today's call. I'd love to just have a round of sharing where we share what we sense is the pledge community from what each of us sees from our own vantage point. So each of you is sitting in this web of relationships. And if you haven't been very connected, you'll actually have fresh eyes, and that those might actually be better eyes. So don't worry about if you haven't been very involved. Like Pascal, you've been busy looking for housing for your son, but you might be able to sense something as you're feeling the absence or the presence of what other people say. You might actually see something really important. So what I want to invite is a sharing about how each of you sees the pledge community so that we can hold this coherence together. And maybe I'll ask for whoever is ready to go first to raise your hand. And then after that, pass it forward so that we don't have to wait till everyone's ready. We'll just build on what's being stirred within us. But I'd like the first person to go when they're ready. So that can include Tyler or Penny as well. So whoever would like to go first. What do you see as being, what is the pledge community and how is it holding coherence in this complex moment?
I'll go. I'll name just a couple things because I'm thinking back to when it first started. In addition to everything you said. When it first started, there was a lot of people from the like Web3 world who are excited about designing an NFT. We were talking about doing a token for Barichara. So I just wanted to bring that back in. It feels like that's related now to the Refi Barichara event. And like integrating, it feels like an integration of the pledge community with the Refi Barichara event through that path. Also, I remember when we first were talking about it, it was like a different way of fundraising in a way where we could be supporting each other in creating, the group pledges, or if we couldn't quite fulfill our pledge, getting help from each other. So like a community of support in that way. So just remembering that. And yeah, I think I'll share everything you said too, but I just wanted to bring those elements back in that were in the beginning when we were first starting.
And who would you like to pass it to?
How about Chad?
And Tyler, do you want to move closer so everyone can see you? Come on, Chad, please.
Hi. Yeah, so I was also there when they began to pull together some of these ideas, and we initially the invitation for the pledge community was extended, and I've been seeing it also as a space where, like, I'm just agreeing with you, Penny, where there was this a meeting of people already from ER with those from the Web3 space, and I'm not sure exactly how to make sense of the evolving dynamics since then as people come and go. I think I'd like to hear a little bit more or learn, get to know people coming in from the Web3 space better as part of the community here, because I've had spent lots of time with other folks from ER, which is great to see. But been nice to see some exchange and yeah, get a sense of what the motivation interest is across folks, and also yeah, I suppose that we were coming in also initially as a way to bridge funding for Las Albercas, and that's been achieved. So there's a question of how to, or it's likely been achieved anyhow. So how to yeah, reorient as we go, is sort of one question I have. And I will pass it on to Pascal.
Yes, thanks, Jen. I like this stage where things are still very unclear and very careful threading. I know what for me the coherence between the pledge community and is that I am personally involved in a lot of local initiatives, and here in the city where I live, and I find that there's not really an open space to talk about Web3 and NFT. People have very opinions about it, so I cannot really explore that space. And so for me personally, that is where I feel the coherence and this drive for either fundraising or how to find new ways for finance and funding that probably would include Web3 or NFT in it. That's something that intrigues me, and that's very interesting to me. And what is happening in Barichara is also something that intrigues me very much. Personally think is very important. So yes, for me it's also often, I've been 2 or 3 calls earlier, and on the one hand you feel impatience to start, but you don't even know what are we going to start, but you still feel the impatience of wanting to get going. So I think it's good that we slow down and just really get a sense about what it is that drives everybody here, because if you start too soon, and you can sometimes get into the situation that you thought you really understand it, where we were going, but when it gets to the details, everybody had a different idea about where we were going or what the priority of every step was. So yes, I'm really appreciating this approach, and yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I'll pass it on to Paula.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. The microphone is okay? Yeah? Okay. So I was thinking about that when I was writing that case study, I had this, question that I don't really have an answer to about what is the relationship between like a specific place and this community in the in a nowhere space, like the internet. We are both we're all in our places, but on the other hand, we're also meeting in this space without a place, right? On Zoom. And it's also it's also the fact that Barichara is like in the third world. I don't really like this vocabulary, but let's say it. And people online are mostly from like the first world. So I think there's also an interesting thing about this relationship between how this relationship changes between worlds and between places and between spaces, and we're sort of modeling our way through to rethink this relationship and to make it, I don't know, maybe the right relationship to find what is the right relationship. And we're also, the fact that there's a pledge also shows some sort of commitment to this. So that's, yeah, these are my thoughts around it. I'm going to pass it to Stephen.
But two things have come up so far for me. Let's see if I can remember them now. One of them was just my experience of making contributions to causes has generally been, go to a website or write a check or whatever, and then maybe I get an update in an email or something. So the first thing I see about this community was the aspect of community. Like, I don't know beyond that, but we all have a commitment to support Barichara. We're still trying to figure out where the money's going or what it's doing, to some degree, or some of us have contributed in certain ways. So as a sense of some sort of unity in cause, even if it's still vague. And I like that. It's like, oh, these are the other people who are supporting the same thing, rather than just some newsletter and some pictures. And we get that from all of Joe's updates and things. So that, there's that piece, but it sort of feels more circular now. Not a check once a year and then updates monthly or something. So it's definitely got, more of a community feel, which actually does allow for exploring what it is. Like, I feel like I have, there's a different kind of stake in the process when there's this community, again, versus sending off a check and just expecting some sort of updates that tell me what's going on. But it's clear to me that this is a developmental phase, kind of a grappling with what is this about? What is this phenomenon? Doesn't seem to be some sort of model that we can automatically take on, or some sort of template we can jump in and form. So, and I don't remember what the other piece was. So that's the main thing. And I'll pass to Claire.
Thanks, Stephen. I think you were picking up on a lot of the things that coming up for me. The sense, it just makes me so happy to be part of a sense of collective sense making, and I feel that's what's happening. So that sort of being able to participate, and then different portals for participating. And this feels like an important portal because the funding is an important way of being able to catalyze the next steps, knowing that it's only part of it, but it's important. And then just being able to hold that space together. And, just to say, like, I have no real interest in all of the nitty gritty of the cryptocurrency, but I am interested in how it works at a macro scale. And so having trusted relationships of those who are able to get their heads around that and navigate it, and different aspects of the other parts of the sense making where I don't need to be, I need to know enough, but I need to also, more importantly, have trust in the relationships of those navigating those areas. And so, yeah, it just feels, this is what I find really exciting. And I also love the fact that it's okay to hold that space in the confusion until we start to feel that we're ready for the next. They just emerge, actually. So I am going to pass to JP. Are you waking up to? Oh no, it's late at night, right?
And just as before JP comes in, Jan, what we're doing is we're talking about how we see the role of the pledge community helping hold coherence in the larger web of changes, which are all confusing and complex. JP, on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll hark back to what Penny said at the beginning, and that this was at least what attracted me to become part of this was to build a bridge between how we support the on the ground work and the Web3 world, because that makes sense. And that is a very confusing world, and increasingly at the moment. And this is me who's been in it since the Bitcoin white paper was written. So I guess for me also, I'm excited at the possibility of the next real world experiment, because I got to be part of one in Indonesia. Good God, starting 8 years ago now. And the liberation of being off of the mainstream financial grid to do what you need to do is so wonderful. It is so freeing. And to, we ran that for 3 years until the Indonesian government shut it down. And the only thing they shut down was you couldn't transact outside of the native currency. They got scared. You could trade. They're like, fine, if you want to do casino stuff, you could do that, but you can't interact with each other, circulate currency. And I'm looking at this as a very wonderful possibility to support the good work that's happening there in this way. And the more we can get off of the rails of the old paradigm, the better. At least from my perspective. Let's see, have we heard from Jonathan yet?
No, thank you very much. Well, for me, this was, appealed to me immediately when I heard about it, because there was what seemed like a threat to the vision at the time. And I had bought in completely to the vision. And so to me, this is like, I'm not quite sure where we'll get the money from, but I know I can raise it if I have to. So that was the impetus for it. I mean, I know we could write a check for it too if we had to, even though we're not, flush with money or even necessarily on the positive side of the ledger all the time. But it was just something that, I was committed to standing for as a human being and as part of our nonprofit mission. So that's what it was for me. What about for you?
I am really excited. I've never we're a nonprofit. We've been that way for 10 years, and we decided we just didn't want to do any of the nonprofit fundraising or grant writing. We thought we had something that could actually generate income for us. It's been rocky road, and it hasn't happened, but it still can. But this is even better. The idea that we could mobilize people who care about community and economic development, equity, climate change, community involvement, community resilience, and get people together who have their own point of view about it nationally, globally, even though we're working we're working here and everybody's working wherever they are, is amazing, because there's so few places that people who donate have a voice. And this is like just so rich and empowering, and everyone will do whatever they're going to do. But this itself is a place to hold the whole paradigm and to keep changing it all the time. So to be part of something that is moving an organization with the rest of the society and the regenerative society is a wonderful model. I love it. Thank you. It's been great. So, Dan?
Well, Dan's just arrived. So
Yes,
Dan,
I'm
let me
here.
tell you what
Sorry,
we're
I'm late.
talking about here.
Oh,
Sorry about
Dan-
that. I overslept.
Oh, welcome, Dan. It's good to see you. Just want to let you know the conversational prompt is we're asking each person to share what they see this pledge community as being, or what is its role that is helping to hold coherence in all of the changes happening around us in Earth Regenerators and the refi world and our own lives, etc. So that's the prompt. So if you'd like to share, what do you see as the role, or what do you think the pledge community is, or what is it for you? And then after that, pass it forward, and we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I call what Troy was saying, the last part of it, I think that I agree with that wholeheartedly. That we are a dynamic organization insofar that I think we can adjust and react and actually create motivation or momentum. So, I guess that's where I'll leave it. Who's next?
How about if I pass it forward for you and pass it to
Yeah.
Tyler, who's here
Thank you.
with us. Tyler, on to you.
Yeah, I guess what was interesting to me about the pledge community was the idea of sort of designing fundraising potentially through Web3 tools, but in a way that was more actually like holistically aligned with our values, because that can be kind of that can get a little messy. So it was interesting to see then, once Refi Barichara and these things started coming online, if you will, the ways in which we could leverage this space as like a design space for, more thoughtfully implementing this. So I'm just thinking about, I know the Gitcoin grant and the Refi Barichara event has really been the focus here in the last few weeks, but I'm wondering about, as these people come down, in what way could they relate to the pledge community? If the initial vision was, as some of you also suggested, how can we kind of bridge Earth Regenerators with the Web3 space and take our culture to the Web3 space? Because I think that's what's really great about ER is the culture it's created. So I guess personally, I'm wondering, is this an opportunity to invite some of these people who are being engaged in this Web3 work to the pledge community as a way to sort of bridge these two worlds more, and just thinking about those opportunities as these people come down here in the next 2 weeks. That's kind of, that's what I got.
Would you like to pass it forward?
Oh, of course. Let's see here. Pamela.
Oh, thanks, Tyler. Yeah, a good point to reflect on. I came into the space out of a feeling of discomfort and questioning. And I thought that the best thing to do, given that feeling, is to learn more about that and just try to get a bit smarter on the subject. So not being able to swing the $1,000, the group pledge idea came up, and so it's great to see at least one other member from the group pledge here. And it's been really, it's what I find has shifted for me through being here is not so much that I've increased my understanding. There's just so much I do not grok, and I don't really live in the financial space. But what's being transformative for me in my thinking is the whole principle behind a shifting paradigm about the economy itself. And the experiment in unsettling that paradigm and how essential that is, how fundamental it is. So in the spirit of that experiment, it's really quite exciting to see how, you know, as a few other people have mentioned, you know, ordinarily you just put in some money and then people go off with it, and Los Americas has been bought. And so realizing that, oh, well, this is not just a donation, this is a relationship to people and a bigger idea of possibilities that can unfold. And so I don't think I would have understood Refi Barichara as well as I think I'm coming to understand it, if it wasn't for putting myself in the middle of this discomfort and cracking that nut of that monetary paradigm and seeing the potential for this as a transformational space, not only of earth regenerators who have locked paradigms, but of the people in the in that other Web3 world. And this is language I don't understand, but I'm just picking up on what the language people are using, and I hope it's an appropriate one. But it's interesting to see how that world also needs what earth regenerators and Barichara embodies. And what a wonderful opportunity to seed and cross-pollinate those different zones. So I'll pass on to Lisa, please.
Hello. I'm not sure how much I have to say, but it seems to me like what's going on in Barichara is very transformational. It seemed to me that way all along, and I'm hoping that when I come to the Refi event, it will seem even more like that. I see giving money as kind of a vote of confidence or faith, because in today's world, it's a very tangible way of saying, I believe in you. And I really believe in the transformational work that's taking place. I never expected a pledge community to come out of giving a pledge. And I really, I don't know the potential of it. I don't know if I fully grasp the meaning of it myself. But I think, you know, if I've come to it out of a vote of confidence and faith, then so has everyone else. And I think that is what makes it very special. And that is kind of what makes it there's like a precondition of commitment and excitement, I think. So it's a space that I'm glad to be in. And looking forward, I think it's a meaningful group to be a part of for any future projects that might emerge. Because I think all of our curiosity goes beyond this work being done in one place. So the relationships that might come out of this could be really meaningful going forward, I think, for many of us. So has Antonio gone?
He hasn't.
I'm talking and talking. Yeah, maybe I could just give a little synthesis of what I've experienced after a week in Berlin here for Blockchain Week. And basically what we're seeing is a pattern where anytime a Web3 blockchain event pops up,
I think you muted yourself.
automatically there's mycelium of and this is a really powerful strategy. And I've been kind of coming to the realization that refi is eating the world. And not to say we're going from regenerative finance to relational finance. And I think everybody's starting to see how much the human connections are the foundation. So I could say more about what I saw here in Berlin. I think what's most important to say is that I'm more confident than ever of what we're doing is going to be extremely meaningful and extremely impactful as we create the model and the playbook for bootstrapping these bioregional economies. So I'm seeing it very, very clearly, more clear than ever. I'm also feeling more confident in my abilities to foster these bioregional networks. And also I'm being able to copy and clone myself into other people, or at least this idea, so that they can take it back and take it on to where their homes are. So already it's just being around this kind of in the epicenter of disillusioned youth in Europe and talking about these ideas, people really respond in an extremely positive way. I was staying in a like a community center over the week, kind of your traditional kind of hippie commune, but with more kind of Web3 refi people. And it was just funny because, oh, who didn't do the dishes? And then we can start talking about governing the commons and pro-social relationships. And before you know it, everybody's like already onboarded. So it's been a lot of fun. I think that this pledge community is just showing how we can work together to find the liquidity that we need to do the projects that we want to do. And we don't have to really ask anybody's permission to do it. I think that's kind of we already have the power. So more power to you. Is that it? Is that everybody gone?
Jan still hasn't gone. And
Okay,
Rich
Jan.
hasn't gone.
I am.
Okay, Jan, light it up.
If I'm the last one, yeah, I'm gonna in my comments stay a little bit also more on the technology side, and I'm sure some of you have heard this about Web3 in terms of being the third iteration of the internet and how the iterations before it, for example, democratized access to content. Everybody was allowed to have their a blog, and now the third wave, or the blockchain technology is called the third wave because it democratizes access to financial tooling and also organizational tooling. And this is kind of where we are right now, right? And we have to see beyond or the fact that it is just tools we're talking about, it's just software, and how that gets used. And just like it took the internet years before everybody can have a blog, because we needed things like WordPress or blog post sites to make them useful. We are pretty much at that inflection point right now where the tools are becoming better, but they're not really good yet. And so we need, from a technologist's point of view, need communities like the Pledge community and all the other things that are showing interest to create a feedback loop around, to tell the tool makers what is needed to build, but at the same time also the openness to look at something that is not perfect. But all I can tell you is these tools are made with the purest of intentions, because they're meant to enable decentralized communities, and decentralized communities, like I think Tyler said, a culture comes out of that. So it all goes together in terms of the people, the culture, but the tools that are being used, especially in today's world, are very important. And I call myself basically a tool maker, and that's why I'm excited to be engaging with this community in particular. Is that conversation is very important, because it shapes not only the tools, but also right now the speed with which they can be created. We don't want to wait a few years before these tools are useful. We want to use them now because we need them.
Thank you for that, Jan. I think that's a beautiful summary of how cultural patterns of behavior are shaped by tool use and tool making, and the interactions are very important. Rachel, on to you.
I think I'm going to take us all the way to the other end of the spectrum, because, my area of sort of connection to all of this has to do with, as we are sort of on the leading edge of engaging in this process of transformation into, the new iteration of the human species. I'm really interested in sort of observing the process, and the idea that maybe we can map a little bit of the process of what happens to humans coming out of the fully sort of colonized mindset into this regenerative and, culturally evolved, that will then lead to genetically evolved. So that process is kind of where I'm focused, and I see this group as kind of a very cool stepping stone in this developmental process, because all of us, and I want to just circle back real quick to something that Pamela said, this idea of leaning into the discomfort. That is so cool, because that's how growth happens. And the ability to do that. So the fact that we have developed some trust together, that we're supporting each other in moving towards the unknown and the uncomfortable. And I think this group really represents kind of a true departure from where we were. There's been a transformation that's happened, because everybody in this group has said yes to something that, speaking for myself, but I think this is shared, something I probably would not have said yes to a year or two ago, so something has happened, something has changed. And I feel as if that's really important. And so being in this group, I'm really interested to see, kind of, as we're all leaning into this newness, to see, what does this mean? And then, as we start to see patterns develop, this then helps us with those folks who aren't there yet. We're sort of the reconnaissance team. We've gone over to the other side of the mountain. We're seeing what's there. We can go back and tell the people who maybe aren't ready yet. We can say, oh, we've seen this, and it's okay, and you can follow us. And I think this is, it's very unformed, but I think it's super important. So anyway, just to say that that's what this group means to me.
Thank you, everyone, for this, because what I sense is that on May 27th, when I was really feeling stressed about Dan carrying a big load and the worry for Las Albercas held together. I was holding both of those. And I didn't know how to gather strength. And then in a couple of little, stumbling steps of experimentation to gather strength, the pledge community was born. And so in a way, this pledge community was born from a spiritual struggle, a struggle to stay on course in a time of deep uncertainty and pain. And that to me feels like, as we're now entering into this very particular moment, I think what Antonio was alluding to, he didn't fully describe what's happening in Berlin, but Antonio and I are both playing a particular kind of weaver role right now within a very dynamic space and spreading memes in a very powerful way. We're seeing them happen. People have started contacting us to ask how we're designing Refi Barichara so they can imitate it in Southeast Asia, in other parts of South America, in North America, in Europe, and we haven't even done the event yet. And so there's something really powerful that's happening right now. And what I sense that we're doing is we are birthing the mechanisms, the cultural mechanisms that enable us to create and replicate landscape scale regenerative projects. But to do that, you don't just take money. You don't have a small team doing sense making. You don't separate those who are giving from those who are doing. This is all hands on deck. This is barn raising. Here in Colombia, they call it a minga, where you all come together and create it together with your neighbors. And so what I'm sensing is that this pledge community is something really interesting to sit with, to be with, to, as Pascal said, you like that it's not yet clear, and we're not trying to make it clear too quickly. We're slowing down. We're slowing down because we sense that whatever we're doing is too important to get it wrong. So let's slow down. And I can feel already that some of the people who are coming to Refi Barichara have been building the tools we need already, but they didn't have a place to put them into action. They didn't have a place to grow them. And they're about to in 2 weeks. They're about to. People who have figured out how to define ecological assets and track their value flows for creating a local economy are coming here. People who are figuring out how to basically siphon money off of the waste of the global financial system and funnel it into decentralized but accountable governance models using liquidity pools, NFTs, and DAOs. Basically tools that they've been creating, but they didn't have a place to use them, are going to get to practice using them. And I think what Jan said is really important. The tool builders need tool users. And the tool users need to be friends with the tool builders. So this idea of like, crypto is so energy destructive, go away, vampire. Like, no, we're struggling to figure out how to do something really important, which is we're struggling to figure out how to have a planetary scale collective intelligence that actually is intelligent. Right now we have a planetary scale collective zombie. This absolutely stupid, life-destroying globalized trade system. It is not intelligent. It is not intelligent at all. It's destroying everything that it needs to survive. And so to create an intelligent planetary system means to have intelligent regional systems, intelligent local systems, and they must be translocal. They must go beyond one place, and at the same time have deep roots into one place. And so I guess what I want to ask of all of you, after having just gone through this exercise, is I want to ask you to just hold the coherence that is present in our confusion. We can stay confused. Being confused is okay, but let's keep holding the coherence of the confusion. Why are we confused? We've never done this before. We're putting things together that never been brought together before. Things are changing really damn fast. A bunch of things are changing at once. Like being confused makes a lot of sense right now. Not being confused doesn't make any sense right now. So if we can hold coherence in the confusion, we can see the North Star. Right? And if we can see the North Star, then we can actually do those reconnaissance missions that Rachel was talking about. Because what I feel is emerging right now is a real possibility to bootstrap each other into landscape scale capacities all over the planet. I feel it because of who the partners are that are coming together. I got a message yesterday from this guy, Alex Corin, who lives in the Boulder area in Colorado, who's part of the Regenerative Community Land Trust group. They're a really cool group, by the way. You'll be hearing more about them soon. And Alex sent me a message saying, I work with a project called Spirals. Some of you may know what Spirals is. Spirals is a way of basically recirculating money with crypto to increase the velocity of money. Those are weird words. All that means is that they use crypto money to enable actions to happen that generate more crypto money, while also letting those actions happen. And so there's a project called Spirals, and they're using it to try to fund community land trusts. And what Alex said to me was, I'm really excited to come to Barichara. By the way, for you, those of you who don't know, I know Alex because Todd Youngblood introduced us. Some of you know Todd, right? He's helping build the Vivero app for Earth Regenerators. We're in a very small world of friends here. And so Alex said, I am dedicated to bringing funding to Barichara because we need to show how to do this. So when I come to Barichara for the refi event, I'm going to be looking for ways to bring money to you. Now, why would he do that? Why would anyone do that? Because we're doing what Lisa said. We're showing that we are excited, that we have faith, that we believe in what this is, and we believe it needs to happen. But if we just stopped at the belief of giving, of like writing a check, as Stephen said, and then you walk away, we wouldn't do it. And as smart as I might be, or as smart as you might think I am, as smart as you might think our amazing local team is in Barichara, they're not as smart as all of us. I'm not as smart as all of us. We are doing something incredible right now. And when I sat yesterday with Margarita, Ivona, and Natalia to start designing the immersion experiences for Refi Barichara, they asked me, what do you need this event to do? And I started telling them what I've been learning from Antonio and from others in the refi space. The people in the refi space need this, they need this, they need this. We're bringing coherence to what's needed, and then we're designing to give it to them so that they can bring to Barichara what Barichara needs. So that everyone who's watching and learning from Barichara will get to watch and learn from Barichara. And so we're creating this. This is why I think the pledge community holds a very special relational space of coherence. Even though it's just a teeny tiny kernel of like 35 of us so far. So that's something I wanted to share. We're coming close to the time we need to close. So Stephen, and then we'll close.
So I was thinking of this as people kept talking, and it ties in with what I started with in terms of the community. The process of gift giving, as it was indigenous, was colonized in making it transactional rather than relational. And giving a gift actually binds the giver to the receiver. And I'm present to that in this community. And not only does it bind the giver to the receiver, but the whole community becomes bound together. And that's not a problem. In a relational space, in a transactional space, hell yeah, that's a problem. And I'm just reminded of how something as simple as reading a book 20 years ago called The Gift, how it comes back later on to reflect and alter my perception of things. So just, yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. Also, I want, as we hold this clear coherence of confusion, let's also hold what is emerging, because each of us can see and feel parts of it. So as we keep coming together, let's keep sharing what we're seeing and feeling emerging. Because this collective sense making is going to be really important in this particular time of change. And there'll be other times of change after. If you think that's going to slow down after this, hate to break it to you, just going to be more fast, more big, more complex, and we're going to be practicing holding it and a little overwhelmed over and over again. But this is part of our work, is to be in that place. So thank you all. I feel like this was a really good use of an hour of time. And I feel like I understand a lot better what the pledge community is now than I did an hour ago. And I'm going to keep understanding it more as we go along. I am just as confused and unclear as all of you. We're all feeling our way in the dark here, but we're feeling our way towards something real. And it is creating something real. And I think, as Tyler asked, I think we will want to invite more people into the pledge community to feel this with us, but not because it's raising money. That's just like a beneficial byproduct. Because the work we'll do after this, the work we'll do continually later, is going to be much more valuable than any money we can get right now. Which is also how I feel about the Gitcoin funding round. We're at $23,000 raised right now. And it's going to close tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time US. At the end of the day tomorrow, it's going to close. We'll see how much it lands at. But the amount of money is sort of irrelevant. We have leveraged Gitcoin to strengthen relationships with like 20 ally projects, half of whom are coming to refi Barichara. And we raised $25,000 approximately, just as a byproduct for the regenerative work in Barichara. And so there's something really different going on. And by the way, that could not have happened without crypto and Web3. Just wouldn't have been possible. So there's something really interesting here. So with that, thank you, everyone. Reach out to me if any of you want to personally talk or touch base about any of this, but mostly connect with each other. And onward we go. Thank you, and let's keep going and see where we are.